Thanks, Chris. Here to weigh in on that issue and much more, journalist Lauren Cohn, Jim Lakely, Director of Communications for the Heartland Institute, and Kathy Cheney, reporter and producer for WBEZ Radio. Thanks for coming and welcome to you all.
Thanks for having us.
Governor Rauner made a rare appearance before Chicago City Council yesterday, asking for a partnership in turning the state around and setting the stage for what seems like a legislative let's make a deal here. The governor said for Chicago to get what it wants, the state must get what it needs. Lauren, is that ominous or hopeful?
Look, this is a governor who wanted to be different from the status quo. He did this because he's putting his hand out, put your hand out. We expected we weren't going to see a big agenda come out of this. I think it's a great step forward. He's a different type of governor. Give him a little time. I think it was a good move.
Jim, politically courageous?
Oh, I think so, but I think Rauner's probably going to prove himself to be politically courageous because I don't think he cares whether he gets reelected or not, and that's the most dangerous kind of politician you can have.
Let's listen to a bit of what the governor had to say after his speech.
Change, big change is difficult, but we need to make big changes. And the good news is there's clear indication that Democrats as well as Republicans realize big changes are needed, and we're making progress. It's slow. The wheels of democracy grind at their own pace, but we're making progress, and I'm cautiously optimistic.
Kathy, how optimistic should the governor be that he can sell his agenda?
Well, he's always short on specifics, so that's not always good. So it's one of those, you keep coming in, but you're not giving much. You're saying a lot, but not giving much. We need a little bit more specifics, and until he comes with that, I don't think we can really be optimistic about much. But I mean, talk is talk, but talk is cheap. You know, show some action, but give some details, and we've seen little of that.
Actually, though, not giving details proved it effective when he ran for governor, when he beat Quinn. I don't know that he has to come out with an exact list of details. He's the governor of, I don't want people going to Wisconsin, I don't want people going to Indiana, I don't want people going to Michigan, which they are for jobs and better wages where they've seen improvement. So I think he can hold stuff back. It's whether or not the legislature will bargain with him and pass things, and that remains to be seen. But I think that he's shaking some heads.
The legislature is key here. I mean, they are basically responsible for a lot of the forward movement that the governor is looking to make in his agenda. So why address the city council, Jim?
Well, you can't. Chicago's the biggest city in the state. It's the most important city, obviously. Most of the representatives in Springfield are from Chicago. I mean, I thought it was really interesting that he decided to do that and was the first governor maybe ever, or at least in maybe 150 years, to address the city council. You think that would have happened in the past, and the body language of the whole scene was quite striking. The picture in the Tribune today of Rahm Emanuel standing behind him and above him, the look on his face and the body language was very negative toward Rauner. So I think he gets credit for coming to Chicago because the state can't be fixed unless Chicago is fixed, and it's all tied together. And that's why Rauner was at the city council yesterday.
There might have been a nice bottle of wine back in the mayor's office for them to share afterwards. I'm not so sure that when the mayor makes a sort of stone cold face at the governor that he's not really chuckling inside. I'm not so sure.
I don't know. Do you think that this is a new sign of cooperation, window dressing? Is there more going on behind the scenes than we'll ever know?
Absolutely. It's the Chicago way. It's the Illinois way.
It's a move of flexing the muscle. I don't know too much about cooperation just yet, but they have to play the part.
When you talk about playing the cards tactically with a move like this, who wins?
Rauner. I mean, he came to Chicago to say, look, the city of Chicago has things they need, they want. Rahm Emanuel has things that he wants, for instance, a casino in the city. That's not going to happen without Rauner's cooperation. And so this was the opening bargaining of the things that Rauner thinks is necessary to fix the state of Illinois and the things that Mayor Rahm Emanuel thinks are necessary to help fix the fiscal situation in Chicago. And so I think it's actually a great way to open the negotiations publicly like that, and we'll see things moving forward, because now they both kind of have to respond because this has happened. A lot of people have seen it, and now they expect some results.
So Rauner won round one?
You think Rauner won? Oh, I think yes. I think Rauner won round one because I think he kind of got the city council a little bit off guard, and he had frankly the cojones to come to Chicago in a very hostile place.
No bailout.
No bailout. No bailout. He said the things that he ran on. And he said some things that were difficult for people in Chicago to hear, but he said them publicly out loud to their faces. I think that's a pretty big deal.
You mentioned one of the things Mayor Emanuel is looking for, and that is a casino in the city of Chicago. When you look at this and the deal he may have to make with the state to get it, what are the odds the mayor will get his way?
Well, I think, first of all, I think, a casino run by the government in Chicago, what could possibly go wrong with that? And so, but the mayor is intent on having the city own it and keep all the proceeds and pay just a little bit of tax back, but to pour all that money into the city. If that actually happens, I don't know if Rauner necessarily would agree with that based on his free market philosophy and business background, but he may have to compromise on that. But what we can probably guarantee is that if a casino run by a city compared to casinos run by private enterprise that they'll be competing with all around the Chicago area, they're not going to be able to compete very well because, frankly, the government doesn't have the customer's best interests in mind. They're not really great at running businesses. So
Really?
I don't think so. Yeah,
You noticed
wow.
that too?
There's been the track record.
Lauren, is gambling the way the state should go to pay for pensions?
Look, no, absolutely not. I think the answer to your first question is that he's going to get his casino. And it sounds to me with what the governor said a little bit saying yesterday is that he's not going to stop the casino. He may not like gambling. He's okay with the revenue generated. He's okay with the jobs creation. I think the problem with the casino is it can't be an answer to the pension problem. You can't solve the pension liability by strictly just putting up a casino. You have to go for real pension reform. And I think Rahm Emanuel knows that, and I think the governor knows that. And there's a big weight on Rahm's back right now. He's got this $550 million payment that's due for police and fire. With that said, I don't think, and I would agree with you to an extent, that the city of Chicago really wants to be known as the city of hiring dancers and dealers. We want to do a jobs program where we talk about long-term job creation. We talk about building the tech industry, which is growing. We have a hub here. Let's partner Google with educational institutions. Let's build healthcare, our manufacturing. Let's not make the casino our big jobs program.
When you look at places like Atlantic City, do you see casinos, Kathy, as a long-term sustainable solution for the city?
Not for the city. My big issue would be where the casino would be. And as Lauren was saying, job opportunities, are they going to go to people in the community? That would be my big issue. But then safety also is my big issue with the casino. I'm scared to, gamble more than $30 at a casino. I probably go once a year. So, it just baffles me, the people that go all the time. So that's my issue is safety, the jobs, and gambling is an addiction, so you've got to have those resources in place if you're going to be willing to, take on that responsibility of having a casino in Chicago.
These are all part of issues that the state lawmakers are looking after in Springfield. They have about 3 weeks till the end of the session to close a $6 billion budget deficit. And then we hear today from the Civic Federation that their review of the governor's budget said that the cuts the governor were looking to make don't seem achievable. What can we expect in the next 3 weeks? And will we see major movement here?
Locking heads, maybe, but look, you got to cut somewhere. Nobody likes to see their program cut. Nobody does. But the fact of the matter is that we have no choice. We've got to get out of the red. And I think that Rauner has said very clearly, these may not be popular choices, but I have to make them. Things have stayed the same for so long, and that's why the voters went a different direction. They hired a businessman to run Illinois and not a politician. Give him some time, give him some room, and I think that maybe you'll see some of these things on his agenda pass. I do.
No, there's no such thing as an unsustainable cut or something that can't be cut. I mean, eventually things will go on forever until they don't. And the state cannot continue spending the way it's spending, have a budget structure the way it's structured. There needs to be radical reforms because there's no one to come bail out Illinois. The federal government's not going to do it. Eventually, these things have to be addressed. And that's, as I mentioned earlier, Rauner's kind of a scary politician because he really, I don't think, cares about getting reelected. He really does want to have a legacy in which at least he did the attempt. He tried really hard and tried to even do some radical things that he thought were necessary to fix Illinois and in response, fix Chicago. And if that's going to be his only legacy, he'll go down swinging pretty hard.
I mean, think about your own budget in your own household. Let's just take it down to the families that are sitting at home. You can't spend more than you make. If you do, then you're in debt, and you create this whole debtor society, debtor nation. We want to get away from that. So you have to go over your own budget. All four of us do here. Everybody listening does. What can I cut? Some things you don't want to cut, but you have to.
All right, we're going to switch gears here to the Obama Library. It's possibly the worst kept secret ever. Word leaked out last week that President Obama's library will be built here in Chicago. The official announcement next week. The University of Chicago's plan beat out bids from New York and Hawaii. Kathy, what will this mean for Chicago?
I think it would mean a great thing for Chicago. We already have some great, cultural and educational institutions. Having another one that's a little bit different will just add to that. We need that. But my vote would be for Jackson Park. It's close to Lakeshore Drive. It's easily accessible. It's close to the Museum of Science and Industry, DuSable. It could bring, more people to the area, to those institutions as well. But the city has to do a little bit better on the parking issue around that curve around Hayes Drive and all the other places, because people get ticketed all the time because they don't know that they can't park there.
That's an issue everywhere in the city as well. There are two choices, as you mentioned, Jefferson Park, Washington Park. Jim, are those the best locations for this?
Oh, probably, and I think I agree with Kathy that Jefferson Park seems to make the most. Jackson Park, sorry.
Jackson Park,
Jackson Park seems to make the most sense for the library. And before, there was rumors, maybe it would be in New York and Hawaii. The poor people of Hawaii, they're having a different television show today, talking about how they could have. When is there ever going to have another opportunity to have a presidential library in Hawaii? Probably never. So their chance is blown. But it doesn't make any sense to be anywhere else but Chicago. First African-American president who his political career was started here, and of course he was a lecturer at the University of Chicago. So that all makes sense. But there was a rumor a little bit while back that Chicago State University, historically black college here in the city, might have had an outside shot at getting the presidential library, even though Obama didn't have any ties to it. That would have been really interesting to see as well. But certainly having it closer toward the museums and Lakeshore Drive is the way to go, and I think it will join the great tourist attractions in the city over time.
It's a great photo op too. I mean, just think about it. If you're standing out there taking a picture and you've got the university and you've got the museum, and it's long-term economic viability, and that's what we need in the city. You get 1.4 million people that come in to see the museums, but let's face it, presidential libraries, if you look at Bush and Reagan, have maybe drawn anywhere from 500 to 800,000. So you put it next to a museum, and it's a win-win if people are going to go to two locations. And I would also say that people may be coming to Chicago. There's so much to do here. We're such an amazing city. It may not be top of their list, the presidential library, but if it's next to the Museum of Science and Industry and the university, I think that's a better choice than Washington Park.
All right, on to our next topic, which is medical marijuana. This week, a state panel added 11 health conditions that they want approved for medical marijuana use, including PTSD, migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, diabetic neuropathy, and arthritis, but not for conditions like diabetes and anxiety. Jim, are lists like this problematic?
Yeah, because there shouldn't be a list at all. Marijuana should be legalized. I mean, it's no more radical a drug as alcohol, or people have Xanax and other drugs that they take to self-medicate or through a doctor's care. The idea that we have to go to the state for permission, or patients and doctors have to keep appealing to the state regulators for permission to include this or that or this other condition to treat their patients with medicinal marijuana, just strikes me as irrational and shouldn't be happening at all. That it should be open to, doctors should be able to prescribe these things for the way they want. But frankly, marijuana, we have a war on drugs in this country in which marijuana is one of them that we're battling for, and we should probably at least take that drug out of the war.
It may just be that putting together a list like this is paving the way for legalizing, because when you look at the ridiculousness of the list, you can applaud the fact that, okay, there's no evidence that suggests that marijuana can regulate blood sugar levels, so why give it to a diabetic? And if it spurs on the munchies, if it does, I don't know, I'm assuming just from what I've read, it spurs on the munchies, that you don't give it to a diabetic. And they also said no to anxiety. Well, we all have anxiety, so you could just get a doctor's note for anxiety. That's ridiculous. On the other side, though, they approve it for anorexia. So you're saying someone who's anorexic, then let's give them marijuana so they have the munchies? It's ridiculous. And then irritable bowel syndrome. Every woman over the age of 30 has irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, this is ridiculous. So if you're going to comprise this ridiculousness of a list, then yes, you're paving the way right to legalize marijuana.
And with the anorexia, that struck me on the list, where you give it to someone with anorexia, they get the munchies. Is that now having them shifted over to bulimia? Mm-hmm. So that's a concern. So it's like, did you think about that?
I laughed out loud when I saw that.
Well, there's also issues too. There's no real standardized testing for potency and dosage. So does this now leave doctors open to some sort of malpractice in recommending something that they really can't quantify?
Clinical trials have not been done on a lot of these things. I mean, even in that article, they were talking about PTSD and how it helps. One doctor was quoted as saying, I think this was in the Tribune article that we all looked at, that it can help, someone that may lead to suicide. On the other hand, there's a lot of abuse among veterans coming back, and I think there's a lot of unknown chartered territory that we don't know. But just remember also, the way doctors disseminate pills these days, I mean, you can go in and literally get a doctor's note for everything. I would caution to be very careful with that and just say, oh, everybody go out and have marijuana for this or that.
All right, we're going to move from one type of greenery to another. Kale. Chicago is a meat and potatoes town. It's the town that brought you the deep dish pizza and Italian beef, hot dogs with fluorescent relish. But there is a proliferation, we're reading in Cranes, of restaurants that serve kale. Are we losing our identity, Jim? Have we lost our minds?
Wow, I don't think Chicago is going to be known as Kale City anytime soon. As a man who has had his dinner or lunch handed to him through a car window more often than I would like to admit, I will not be going to, I understand McDonald's is also getting on the kale bandwagon. I will not be having kale handed to me into my car.
Lauren, you're a nutritionist as well. Your thoughts?
I am a kale zealot. I'm all for kale. I mean, I don't think it's going to do anything bad to our economy when we see more businesses popping up like Life Kitchen and the Protein Bar. I think the greater universe of people may be anti-kale, but we'll go for a smoothie, and maybe I'll convince you.
Kathy, last word.
I've been eating kale greens, collard greens, turnip and mustard greens since I was a toddler. Kale greens it's nothing new to the African American community, and it's been popular forever within our community, so I don't see what the hype is.
Thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there. Lauren Cohn, Jim Lakely, and Kathy Cheney, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.